My name is Scott Pryor. I'm with Humanitarian Advocate Coalition. I'm standing here on a Saturday morning in front of Chandler City Hall, where we have a bunch of protesters that are protesting about a Chandler officer who wrongfully and carefully fired his weapon, shooting and killing the family dog in the backyard of their home. We have 20, 30 people here. We've got a lot of support from people that are honking horns up and down the street as they come by. It seems like this is starting to be a popular theme where dogs are being gunned down by police officers, either through lack of training on the police officer's part or encroachment onto the dog's property or domain. So it's one of those things that it's a serious issue, and the people here are just wanting to know why they're killing their family members. So we will be here for a while and try to have a few interviews with some of the people. The family is here that we can talk to, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much, and stay tuned. I'm standing in front of Chandler City Hall with Michelle from Freeze Don't Shoot. We're here to support justice for Simone, a dog that was killed by Chandler police officers in her own backyard. This kind of seems like it's becoming a national epidemic.
It really is. It's becoming a national, all over. Just a week after Simone was shot, a dog named Shep was shot in his own yard. He was arthritic and probably about 13 or 14 years old, and that was in Wichita, Kansas.
And we've had reports of other dogs that have been shot. I believe there was an article about two police officers that one held the dog down and the other one slit its throat, and they both got off scot-free.
That was Nala.
Who?
Nala. Justice for Nala. N-A-L-A.
So there's a lot of our furry family members out there that people are worried or if the police show up at their house are going to be killed for no reason. And that's why we're here today, to support this. Are there going to be future actions for Freeze Don't Shoot, and what about trying to get stuff done at the legislature here in Arizona?
Well, we are going to have another march in April 25th, to support this cause, as well as Donna Early, the founder, who's out here somewhere protesting. We're going to get together and write a bill, and we're actually going to look for politicians that will help back that bill and start moving forward on that.
That's good. That's good, because I think that's what we really need to do to try to prevent this from happening again. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Scott.
Standing here with Donna Early, founder of Freeze Don't Shoot. What sprung you to action to create your organization?
I got into animal advocacy, and I noticed a lot of the police shootings coming to light, increasing. I kind of got started with the Candy Middleton. Followed that story. The next I knew, it was a Geist, and then it was dogs up in Illinois. Then it was dogs here and there, and I'm seeing nothing being done.
Now,
I think to myself, with the Geist story, Sean got a lot of support there in Salt Lake City, but people that lived in the state of Georgia had no idea this was going on. So I wanted to come up with a sort of like national march, but realizing people couldn't go to Washington, D.C., I thought, why not? Let's do it at every state, at the state capitol, and have the same sort of thing. And I went on a whim. I worked one day setting up 50 Facebook pages, got a few friends involved, and before I knew it, I didn't realize how big a problem this really was.
Now, of course, we've had, Simone was killed on the 7th in her own backyard. And we've had, I believe that Michelle was saying there was another dog, I think, in Wichita, Kansas, that was killed in his backyard, and he was an old dog. And it just seems like these kind of stories are popping up all over the nation. Now, as for freeze, don't shoot, what kind of legal type legislation and such like that are you guys going to look at to maybe start getting some state laws for maybe better training of police officers or protections for families who have furry family members that don't want to lose their pets?
Right. Well, our first objective was to bring awareness, and that was to let everybody in the country know that, when police encounter a situation, whether it be a warrant or emergency situation, they're encountering our dogs, and these dogs are getting shot. I mean, they're not necessarily being a threat, but they're being shot. And so our first objective was to bring awareness, which we started. I set it up in July. We had our first march October 25th. We have our second one coming up in April. Now, behind the scenes, I've got 8 regional admins for the nation. I've got 50 state administrators for the groups, and each one are branching off and doing their own local seeking advice in legislation and that sort of thing. So there's all kinds of things in the works. Once we have the awareness, which is a pretty good sign that we're doing that, then we're going to move forward. And I'm not going to be able to be the person to go up to the legislatures and pitch my case. We need somebody that is qualified in that to help us. So there are people coming in every day and joining our group, and things are starting to happen. I'm overwhelmed because I had no idea. I mean, I thought from a view of a simple Facebook page, and now we have a national movement.
It always takes a little grain of sand to build a beach, right?
Yeah.
And so it's looking good. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and one more thing, you guys be vigilant, and be responsible dog owners. Protect them, lock your gates. Just be responsible for your dog, because this can happen to you or anyone at any time.
Good advice. We're standing here in front of City Hall with Bobby, whose furry family member Sammy was killed in Glendale by a off-duty or retired police officer. This was in May of last year. Yeah. So kind of describe what happened and what the fallout from that has been.
Well, it was Mother's Day weekend, and me and Elaine and Sammy were sitting outside in our front patio like we do every night, and Sammy had fallen asleep next to me. Well, a gentleman walking down the street had startled Sammy, and Sammy barked and then got up and walked to the edge of the driveway where I followed him. When we got to the edge of the driveway, a gentleman was out there with his gun out, already drawn down on us. And as soon as we reached the edge of our driveway, he started to shoot. Then he ran towards me shooting as Sammy ran away across the street. And he continued to shoot until he'd hit Sammy, and Sammy had fallen down screaming in pain. And once he'd done that, he turned and pointed the weapon at me with his laser on my chest, saying that he was going to kill me and that he was a police officer, and that if I moved, he would kill me. Once the shooting had stopped, all of our neighbors started to come outside, and they were all in shock and disbelief at what had happened, because they all knew Sammy and loved him, and so did their children. Now, when the police showed up, they took the report very one-sided as to where there's hardly any information about the actual shooting, but quite a bit of information about myself and what I was doing. They cited me as the suspect of the shooting, even though I was unarmed and was shot at, and the shooter was actually listed as the victim. Now, they shooter identified himself as a police officer, but the police department that did the report did not find it necessary to put in the police report what department he worked for, or even to verify whether or not he was a police officer. Since then, we found out he was a police officer from Chicago, but that he's no longer a police officer. But the department he worked for still allows him to carry his badge and to carry his weapon and identify himself and act as if he still is a police officer, even though he is not. Now, the shooter said that he'd recently moved into the neighborhood, even though he'd bought his house in 2009. And he said that he was a police officer in Chicago, or in Illinois rather, and that he had a summer home in Arizona, and that he was down visiting his summer home when the shooting happened.
Now, it's hard enough being out in your own yard and having something like this happen. Now, he was your service dog, correct?
He was a companion dog for me. I'm a disabled veteran. I was in the United States Army for 8 years and was deployed to Iraq. While overseas, I did get injured, and I have a traumatic brain injury and also PTSD for my service in combat. Now, through all the life changes of getting out of the military, and with my grandma who raised me passing away from cancer, my mom and dad also passing away from cancer, Sammy was my companion. He was what kept me centered. He's what kept me healthy and helped me feel whole and allowed me to be able to continue what I need to do in my day-to-day life, because he was just always there for me. He was doing his job.
And this is a perfect example of why we need to create some legislation and make it so that things like this does not happen, because these dogs that are being shot and killed by police officers around the country, they're not killing animals, they're killing family members, a source of comfort. And it's unbelievable that anybody could not understand the pain that a family would go through in this kind of a situation. We're very sorry for your loss, and we're really glad that you had a time to talk to us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are standing here in front of City Hall of Chandler, and I'm standing here with Javier and Angie, and we're here to talk about what the purpose of this citizens action is today. Thanks for stopping in and chatting with us a bit. What are we trying to accomplish today here?
What I'm trying to do is raise awareness for injustice against not just our four-legged friends, but of course people, because it's not a secret. There's a lot of police in question that are using their guns with maybe not so much just reason. And, unfortunately, we live in a day and age where a lot of people don't like to question the police. They just do what they want and exactly how they say to do it. And they're sheeple, and it's sad because maybe there are some people that are really victims of the police department. And animals, especially because they don't have a voice of their own. They're not able to say their side of the story. And, unfortunately, people don't look at animals as a family member. They just see it as a dog. But I see it as, if an officer is going to enforce a law, he should be held accountable for that same law. If you and I were to shoot a police officer's dog, that's murdering an officer. Now, why is that not the same of them coming to my house and shooting my dog, killing a family member?
Right.
And that's what it is. We need to bring awareness to things and how the world really works. And unfortunately, it's sad. A lot of these cases are just getting swept under the rug. A little while ago, I'm not going to say too much on it, but one of the officers that was there at the shooting showed up, and I feel that they're actually trying to intimidate people out of speaking up for themselves.
Right.
And if they're not gonna, then somebody's got to.
And it seems to be starting to happen regularly all over the country. We've had some in Wichita, California. And we've had Sammy here in Glendale, and then Simone. And I think that maybe it could be something that could be corrected through maybe better training of officers on how to deal with the facts that when you come onto a property, if there's a dog there, it's going to bark. It's just going to be that way, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're being aggressive.
Well, see, the training part is one part of it, but I think that they were trained from the beginning how to do it. I think it's more of that they're not being held accountable. So they know deep inside their heart that, hey, if we do something wrong, the chances are nothing bad's going to happen from it, so we can continue to do this. I mean, I was told by somebody out here a little while ago that somewhere in New York, Buffalo, I believe, there's an officer who killed 25 dogs. I mean, if that doesn't raise red flags with how their training is conducted or the type of officers they have, that I don't know what does. It's crazy. I don't think it has to do, like I said, with the training or their procedures. It has to do with these guys think they're above the law. That's what it is, plain and simple. I mean, these guys can pull over people and harass them. They can, assault people, and you got all these people backing them that are the thin blue line or whatever they want to call it, and that's not right. That's wrong. That's sending the wrong message. That's showing that, to me, I've never bashed cops, and I don't have a problem with police officers, but I'm taking it now as if 15 good police officers defend one bad cop, doesn't that make them a little bit questionable themselves?
Yeah, and it is a good point. Now, the first part of trying to change the status quo is, of course, awareness, which is why we're all here today, is to bring awareness to this issue and try to get more people involved in understanding the idea behind it. The next thing would be to try to find some way to change the status quo so that this doesn't happen. Now, do you think that maybe state-level legislation on the training of officers and accountability of officers would be a good idea?
Like I said, the training is one part of it, but I mean, they've been trained. I think it has to do with the actual accountability part, and that shouldn't be just like on a state. It should be like nation, that that these guys should be held accountable for what they do. They're supposedly working for us. Our tax dollars are paying their bills, and the way I look at it is, if I'm at work and a boss comes and checks up on me and I'm not doing my job right, I'm fired. So we should have access to body cameras that are on the internet, and anytime we feel like punching in any random officer's serial number and he has a body cam on because he's on duty, we should be able to see if he's doing his job. And if he's not doing his job, then he shouldn't be on our payroll, period.
Right. No, I agree with that, because I mean, it's public funding that gives them their pay, and yeah, like you said, I mean, if I don't do my job, I get fired. And that's the way things work. So we need to make sure that we change that. So
unfortunately, though, here's the thing, though, and it's sad to say it this way. We live in America, and yes, we have freedom, but a good friend of mine says that if you try to go against a man who owns a jet, chances are you're not going to win. And that's what it is. These guys have money. They have their lawyers that back them, and we need to be aware of that. We need to make it that it's not about money, because money doesn't have value here anymore. It needs to be our freedom, us people standing up together saying, you know what, we're tired of it. You're not going to just come into our community, into our backyard, into our front yard and shoot a dog or shoot a person and then try to justify it by saying that it was a threat. They need to be held accountable for it.
Yes, I do. And thank you very much for talking with us.
Not a problem. Thank you for coming out.
And we're good.